Hello everyone, this is IronZaku. Honestly, it's been a very long time since I did an anime tier list video on my channel, and considering how recently a good friend of mine, Duellist, did his part 2 follow-up, where I helped collab with him also, I thought it would make sense to bring him again for my part 2 follow-up. So, take it away, Artie.
And I'm taking it away. What's up, YouTubers? I'm glad to be back.
Glad to have you back indeed, Artie, as always. Now, when it comes to this list as well, I think it's important to have a bit of a quick recap for those who haven't seen the first one, but do not worry, I will have that link in the description if you want a bit of a good history lesson. Best of the best. Animes, for the most part, I thought were absolutely amazing and are definitely worth your time. Great. Animes, for the most part, that I thought were really solid and really entertaining. Even if they have some issues here and there, I still say go watch them. Decent. Animes, for the most part, that I thought were pretty okay and I didn't regret seeing them. They did have some problems here and there, a bit more than usual, but not much to drag it down. Below average. Animes, for the most part, that I thought were wasted potential. They did have some good ideas here and there, but for the most part, I wouldn't want to revisit them anytime soon. And finally, I think we all know what the bottom tier is. Am I right?
The Shadow Realm. Dun dun dun.
Animes that, well, for lack of a better word, that I thought were pretty garbage. Ones that I would say stay away from them to the best of your ability. So then, anything you want to say before we jump into this?
Nothing really comes to mind, although by the looks of it, none of these animes are gonna give me PTSD. Unlike what happened on my list where you were the one who ended up with PTSD.
God, I'm just remembering this now.
Alright, the next anime, guys, we're going to be looking at is one that I'm pretty sure my MLS really wanted me to talk about. Kiss Sis.
What the fuck is this? So then, without any time to waste, let's jump into this, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, first off on our list, and hopefully I'm pronouncing its name right, is Samurai Champloo.
You sure it's not pronounced as Samurai Shampoo?
I see what you did there, but honestly, that's probably the best way I'm going to pronounce it. So again, as usual, you saw the title card on the screen. So anyway, let's continue onwards then. So this was created by one of the co-creators of Cowboy Bebop, if I remember correctly. So this might give you a bit of a good idea with where we're starting off with this, but hopefully we're not going to rush to conclusions just yet. So then, the plot for this one involves our three main characters of the anime, Fu, Mugen, and Jin. It starts off with Fu working in a tea house in the Edo era of Japan. You know, the time period where you would have a lot more samurais than usual. However, after dealing with some bad people, should we say, she begs one of the customers, Mugen, to pretty much go to town with them, literally by, you know, doing some unspeakable things to them, to the point where when Jin shows up, he thinks he's one of the bad guys, and these two end up getting into a bit of a sword fight, which unsurprisingly gets them caught and sentenced for execution. However, Fu sees potential within these two and saves them from that fate, just so that she can make them tag along with her in a quest to help find the samurai who smells of sunflowers.
The samurai who smells of sunflowers?
That's literally how the character is described at the end of the first episode. I don't think I could say anything more to elaborate on that.
Okay, I know I'm not the best at describing things, but I could probably think of something better than the samurai who smells of sunflowers.
So, with that out of the way, the anime itself is pretty much, if you could imagine it, a sort of road trip kind of journey, where our characters get into a lot of shenanigans for their quest to, again, find the samurai who smells of sunflowers. And overall, I thought the journey was pretty well solid, and I did really like the cast of characters we get to follow, as well as a lot of the fun action sequences that we get. And, well, there is one thing that really makes this anime very iconic and killer for me, at least: the soundtrack. My god, the soundtrack is very, very good. But before I sing more of its high praises, likely, I'm going to tell you all a bit of a story. So, Artie, feel free to tune out, but if you like, join in with the crowd. A long while ago, before I saw this anime, I wasn't a huge fan of hip-hop. It really wasn't my cup of tea. So when I jumped into this anime, because I like to at least give things a try, it kind of was looking to be the same. However, do not worry, this story does have light at the end of the tunnel. I listened to it more as the show went on, and it got to the point where it actually became one of my favourite soundtracks, and it actually won me over to hip-hop, truth be told.
I can sort of understand and relate that. A lot of animes have some good soundtrack. As someone who has like a bit of a musical family, my mum used to play piano, my brother played quite a few instruments, and considering there's a sing mode on my Twitch, you can tell I used to sing a bit. I can sort of understand that. Considering I'm not really that big into musicals or musical anime, but I can still appreciate them. In fact, two animes I really like is Love Live and Fuka.
Although for this case, it's not like a musical in a traditional sense, but it's more like it helps with accompany the anime and the story. So the tracks that do play in Samurai Champloo are really fantastic. However, I was sad to discover that one of the main contributors for the soundtrack, a hip-hop artist, I believe, known as Duellist, unfortunately passed away in early 2010 due to a car crash accident.
Oh.
So in a way, it actually got me to like listen to more of the guy's music as a way of paying my respects, considering how much I loved this soundtrack. And, well, all I could just say is, it's quite an experience. So with that out of the way, hopefully, I'm going to, of course, with little to no surprise, putting Samurai Champloo in best of the best. Okay, so the next anime is from Studio Mappa, the same studio that worked on the final season for Attack on Titan, Dorohedoro.
What kind of name is that?
I mean, to be fair, when it comes to animes, they have very strange names, so you pretty much have a good idea of what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, considering some of the titles I bring up to you, no surprise really.
Okay, so are you curious to hear what this one's about?
Yeah.
Okay, so from the best of my ability in describing this, right, it follows our main protagonist, Kaiman, who wakes up from amnesia to discover that a sorcerer has cast a spell on him where his head becomes that of, wait for it, a lizard.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he wakes up to discover that he has the head of a lizard.
So he's got a human body and a lizard's head?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my brain around that.
However, that's not the only insane thing that you'll be encountering in this anime. So with that out of the way, Kaiman and his friend Nikaido pretty much go out of the way to hunt down the sorcerer who cast a spell on him. However, his actions do not go unnoticed as a cleaner group pretty much is sent to hunt down Kaiman early on through Shin and Noi, who are pretty much very, very fun characters in their own right as well.
So wait, some cleaners are coming around.
It's basically like another term for like hitmen in a way. So basically the hunters being sent to hunt down Kaiman for, you know, killing sorcerers pretty much.
Oh, I was just picturing like some people with mops and just going around going, "Yep, we're gonna clean you up."
I mean, that's not how I was picturing it, but of course, that's literally how they are described. And to say that Dorohedoro is a crazy anime is one hell of an understatement.
How so?
I mean, let's go over a few things, right? The world of Dorohedoro is quite chaotic in a sense that it has these two realms, although there is a third one, so we'll go over these. The first one is the human realm, which takes place in a place called The Hole, which is pretty much a very, very, very unpleasant place to be at, considering how it's very violent, very dirty, and not the kind of place you want to be there. The second realm is the Sorcerer's Realm, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's a realm where sorcerers live, and basically some of them even go to the Hole to conduct some of their own experiments on the humans. So you can pretty much imagine how kind of messed up some of the scenarios are.
Yeah.
And of course the third one, which helps to collaborate with the sorcerers to an extent, the Devil Realm. Yes, this anime does have devils. And another note to keep in mind as well is that, well, if I'm going to be honest as well, kind of like with Samurai Champloo, but for a different reason, the music in this anime is absolutely crazy. Especially the opening themes and the ending songs that we get, which I thought are pretty much fantastic bangers in their own right.
Anime opens tend to be bangers anyway.
Yeah, pretty much so. And along with the fact that, well, Dorohedoro is a very, very brutal anime. Like, the violence in this should please anyone who loves that kind of brutality that you would see in something like Mortal Kombat.
Oh, God.
I mean, for example, you do see one of the characters, Shin, literally, like, rip someone's heart out like it was a Mortal Kombat fatality.
Wow, okay,
And the fact that sorcerers use these powers from their fingertips, which they can make smoke, which does different properties, which completely dismembers someone, for example, but they are still alive. Yeah, just let that sink in.
This sounds more like an anime for ecchi teens that just want to feel like hardcore badasses by just watching this.
And of course, the last thing to note off as well is that I thought, for the most part, the animation with its traditional and CGI blend, for the most part, actually fitted well with the overall art style, though, to be fair, it does take a while to get used to since you will notice it kind of stick out. But for a bit of an odd twist, the CGI in this anime, from my perspective, didn't make me want to, like, vomit of how terrible it looked, like with a lot of CGI animes these days. And now the tricky part is, where am I going to rank this? Because I did enjoy it overall, however, there are some aspects that might not be for everyone's cup of tea. So
yeah, for me, just hearing that it's apparently extremely gory already put me off quite a bit. Like I said, it sounds like an anime made for like really edgy teenagers that just want to see extreme violence for the sake of seeing extreme violence.
But the thing is, though, it's not just all violence and gore, because the show itself can be very oddly funny and charming when it needs to be. So it will have these moments where at least it'll halt the brakes just for character development and such, so at least you get that. So because of that, I think I'm probably going to put Dorohedoro maybe in the great tier, I think. I mean, it's in great because of the fact that there are some minor things that I think could have been better, and the CGI does kind of get a bit distracting at first, but it did win me over in the end. Next up is a video game anime for a change, Persona 4 The Animation.
Now, I'm not going to get a lot of hate for this. I have not really played any of the Personas. I know of them. Everyone's probably heard of them at least once, but I've not really played them at all.
Funny that you say that, because Persona 4 was actually my introduction to the series, and as a bit of a fun side note for those watching, yes, I do know Persona is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei. I did play the Nocturne remaster a while ago, so I have pretty much good knowledge of what I'm getting myself into. So Persona 4's story is actually an adaptation of the base game, so it doesn't count the new character in that for the golden version that was released years later, so keep that in mind. So the story for this one follows our main protagonist, Yu Naokame, who gets pretty much transferred to a new school in the town of Inaba, along with living with his family relatives through his uncle, Ryoto Dojima, and his daughter, Nanako, who is absolutely wholesome, might I add.
We always need those wholesome characters. We always.
Yeah. However, despite the fact that he's getting along with some of the new characters at school and making friends with them, something happens in Inaba that pretty much sends a huge shock.
Did the Fire Nation attack?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised. A murder happens where a body was found hanging from on top of a telephone pole.
What?
Yeah, a body was discovered hanging from a telephone pole.
What? Okay,
I mean, normally you would think that if you were a killer, you would make an attempt to hide your bodies, but what a way to make a display, I guess.
Wow. Okay, this is honestly reminded me of another type of anime that does flashy murders, but that's later on down the list as well, by the looks of it.
However, where that shockwave gets sent, our main protagonist discovers later on that he has the power to enter through a television, which allows him to go to the shadow world, which allows him to later on achieve the power of having a persona, as well as his friends later on. Which, yeah, personas are kind of similar to that of Stans from JoJo.
Of course, you had to have a JoJo reference somewhere in your videos.
Always. I mean, I could have just described it better by saying Pokemon, but considering how Stans and Personas are kind of similar, that's the only thing I could think of. So Naokami and his friends basically later on form an investigation group where they pretty much help save victims who are thrown in the shadow world to stop the Inaba serial killer from striking again. So with that out of the way, that's quite a handful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a handful. So it's a detective series.
In a way, yes. And considering how it is an adaptation of Persona 4, which is a really long game, might I add, since I have played it, though that's with the golden version, I think for the most part this anime adapts the story fairly decently well compared to a lot of animes that do tend to have a bit of a rushed, like, episode count, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, this does have its fair share of problems, which, of course, you would, of course, be better off playing the game, but coming from someone who has played the game and loves the characters and the story, I think, for the most part, I didn't regret seeing it. Although the funny thing is, it did receive another anime adaptation years later for the golden version, though I have heard that one was pretty disappointing. But with that out of the way, I think it's time for me to quickly give this one the ranking that I think it suitably deserves. And I think I'm going to put this in decent. For the most part, I think it adapts it pretty well, though I wouldn't honestly put it up any higher because, well, Dorohedoro and Samurai Champloo have much better qualities to them. This anime does have its moments where you can tell it is kind of rushed. You would rather play the game, but it's not bad at all, and I didn't regret seeing it. Okay, next up is a bit of a nostalgia bomb for a certain someone, and I know you're going to have quite the time talking about it. Digimon The Movie.
Yeah, this is a nostalgia bomb for me. I'm a huge fan of Digimon. Honestly, yeah. Truth be told, back when I was first going to start doing YouTube, I debated whether to do Digimon, Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh! But because Digimon was not really well known at the time, and I didn't really have much to really talk about when it came to Digimon, I decided to just focus on Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh! Eventually, adding in games, dropping Pokemon, and then eventually, I think I just downright dropped Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, focused more on games than anime.
But thankfully, we have revisited this movie in recent times as well, so I feel like you're probably way more qualified to describe the plot for this one, so would you like to take it away?
Alright, so let's start off with some information a lot of people will probably know if they just focus on the dub. The Digimon movie is actually 4 separate Digimon stories stitched together thanks to Fox. The first story being a pilot for Digimon featuring Tai and Kari finding Agumon. The second story is known as Our War Game, where the Digidestined have to go into the internet to take on Dioboromon. And the third one is actually 2 movies put together, where it features the 02 Digidestined taking on a Dark Digivolved Digimon. But in the dub, second and third stories are actually linked because of a virus.
Which was, of course, left by Dioboromon in the dub.
Yep, the virus infected Dioboromon's Digi-Egg, and then the virus eventually left the internet and affected a Digimon owned by Willis that made it Dark Digivolve. And
that's pretty much like the story of how Digimon the Movie was made, because of the fact that Fox wanted something to compete with the fact that Warner Brothers brought Pokemon the first movie to the West a long time ago, and they wanted to, like, in a way, recapture that success.
Yeah, in the long run, I do think the Digimon movie and the Pokemon movie are on, like, the same scale, but considering they had to stitch together 3/4 movies together, considering the Digimon movies are all, like, short OVA size films, it's quite surprising that they've managed to do that.
Very surprising as well, considering what was going on behind the scenes at the time. I will actually, like, in a way, give them credit for at least trying to do what they had to do at the time. However, there is one thing that does make Digimon the Movie kind of notorious, and I'm pretty sure you know where I'm going with this.
The Angela Anaconda?
Yeah, it had to start off with the Angela Anaconda short, where she's going to the cinema to watch Digimon the Movie, and I'm like, why are we wasting time with this?
Oh yeah, Angela Anaconda. Oh, that was completely like horror for me. I don't know anyone who's turned around and went, "Oh, Angela Anaconda, I like that." No one.
I mean, no one liked the short. And the funny thing is, you are right as well, because when I saw it, like when I was a kid as well, the character designs looked very Uncanny Valley. And I will add this as a note as well. I don't know if the show itself was actually better received on its own. I haven't seen Angela Anaconda, so I think it's best to say that I can't comment whether or not the show that it had to combine with the movie was good or bad.
I remember seeing bits when I was a kid, because I would always go like channel surfing and trying to find something, and I know I always bopped into it now and again. me as a child, I found it very boring and not really likable.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, but I have not seen it in years, so maybe my adult brain will probably see it differently. But yeah, I didn't really like it. I think it was probably for more older audience, because Digimon is mainly targeted for like teen demographic,
And kids as well.
Yeah, even though in the West it was more for, they advertised it more for kids.
And another thing that also makes it oddly fun to watch as well is the fact that it has quite a nostalgic soundtrack.
Oh yeah, the soundtracks were amazing, pure 90s nostalgia there. It even introduced Smash Mouth before Shrek.
Yeah, a full year before Shrek even came out, so by that logic, Shrek stole from the Digimon movie.
Oh, and of course, the best song ever, the Digi-Rap. Oh. I still love it even now.
Oh god, the Digi-Rap. I mean, my comment on the Digi-Rap is that it's like the best, worst thing I've heard, right? I mean, I know for a fact that it's not a classic, but there's just something about it that just makes me smile, you know? In the same way that I'm just like, you know, you're not great, but there's just something about it that I just can't get too mad about.
I'm more surprised of how many words they digified. It's just so awesome.
So many Digiverses. Okay, so before we get into the rankings, since you seem to be way more nostalgic for this than I am, where would you personally rank this before we get to my personal take?
Now, I still hold the film in high regards, but there's still like one thing I would personally like try add into the movie. It might add just a few more seconds onto the movie, but I think it will probably help a lot of people out a bit more, and that will probably have on like the Digipedia where they give info about the Digimon, like they do with the TV series. Because okay, in the first story, you're not really supposed to know much about these creatures because it's a pilot. That I'm okay with. The second one, yeah, okay, at least the Digidestin give us information and we hear Digivolving into and actually figuring out what levels the Digimons are. But for the third one, it's annoyed me for years until I actually learn the names. But when it came to the enemy Digimon in the third story, all we kept calling them was Kokomon, but that was not that Digimon's name. Okay, yeah, Willis probably didn't know that their names changed when Digivolve. I could give a pass for that, but we as the audience would not even know then that Digimon's real name. I never knew when Digimon first appeared, the actual name was Windigomon, not Kokomon. And then it digivolved to Antilamon and then Cherubimon Vice.
That's a lot to take in, isn't it?
Yeah, I never knew that as a kid. I just thought its name changed the same. And then there's only a small number of Digimon that do that. I never knew that the name changed. Even as a kid, I knew that it had to have a different name, but we never knew what that name was. I never knew what that name was until years later. That still annoys me.
I can definitely see why, and I definitely have noted like the improvements that you would do for the movie. But of course, before we get to my take, where would you rank it?
I'll probably put it in great. It is a great one shot for a dub movie. I'm a bit sad that they couldn't continue it on, but then again, only the Adventures and 02 were able to continuities were able to link. Tamers, Frontier, Data Squad, Fusion, their continuities don't really link together. So I can see why they didn't do a second one. Because after the fourth one, it again goes into Tamers having 2 movies. Then Frontier having a single movie. And then Data Squad. Then they didn't dub Data Squad's movie, which was sad.
Okay, so with that out of the way then, you said that you would personally rank it great. Are you ready for my take?
Okay.
I'm gonna honestly probably split the difference with you on that, and for me personally, I'm gonna put Digimon the Movie also in decent, truth be told. And my reason for that is, well, if I ranked it any higher, it would be on the same tier as either Dorohedoro and, of course, Samurai Champloo, which I don't think it deserves to be on the same tier as those two. I think those two, again, had much better qualities. And Digimon the Movie does have its fair share of problems, but overall, it is a fairly nostalgic movie. And if I had to give like an odd comparison, Digimon the Movie, to me, is kind of like Space Jam in the fact that you look back on it, and you know that there are some issues with it, but it's kind of a fun time capsule. Okay then, next up is another video game anime, which is based on a Capcom game, Dragon's Dogma. Odd name, I know.
Honestly, hearing that just makes me think Dragon's Dog.
I mean, Japan likes to be very odd and creative with the titles. That's all I can say. However, so, to get this out of the way quickly for the plot synopsis, Dragon's Dogma, the anime, not to be confused with the game, follows our main character in his medieval-inspired world, and his name is Ethan.
Ethan?
Yeah. His name is Ethan. I mean, of all the names you could have gone with to fit the medieval vibe, you just had to go with Ethan.
We need a good medieval name for our game. Let's go around the board and decide what name we can give our medieval hero. How about Ethan? Good idea. Get a promotion.
Yeah.
Who? Why?
I mean, if I had to give some slack in a way in the game, it's a custom character that you play as that you can name anyone that you like. But for the show, where it's a different medium, I think you could have gone with a better name. But with that out of the way as well, Ethan one day has his local town attacked by none other by a dragon. And, of course, Ethan attempts to fight back against this dragon when his wife and that die. But, of course, as you would expect, it backfires. And the dragon, seeing potential within this Ethan, makes him the Arisen by ripping his heart out.
Well, that's just lovely.
Yeah, it's a dark fantasy anime. So you pretty much kind of know what you're getting yourself into. So basically, after this event, Ethan surprisingly wakes back up after losing his heart, and it's his destiny to later on find the dragon and to get his revenge for killing his wife. Along with the fact that he actually has a companion pawn that, just like in the game, travels with the Arisen wherever they go. And that's where the difference between the game and the anime starts to begin afterwards, because both start kind of similar, but one's a lot more darker. But afterwards, though, it becomes quite a wrecking ball of how awful it can get.
Awful in a visual story, or
awful in a sense that narratively it's like it wants to be like a carbon copy of Berserk, just without understanding why it worked for there. Because Dragon's Dogma, the game, yes, it starts off similar with your main character getting the heart ripped out, but one's not afraid to at least have fun with its campy nature, while the other is just depression. It's dark, violent, and steps into some pretty uncomfortable territory at times. And the thing that kind of annoys me about this as well is that the opening for this anime, it doesn't match with the visuals because it sounds way too heroic.
Maybe it's supposed to be a fake out.
I mean, if that was the case, then I think it would have been a lot more better, but afterwards though, the story literally has its episodes, and I kid you not, named after the 7 deadly sins. So you can imagine what kind of subject matter that they tackle.
And I'm guessing by your love for it, they tackle it terribly.
Yeah, without much subtlety. It's like it wants to have its cake and eat it when it comes to dark fantasy animes, but again, it adapts a source material that wasn't completely dark fantasy to begin with. I mean, yeah, it has its elements, but like I said, the game itself was actually a bit more fun and a bit more lighthearted at times. So if I had to play the comparison game, the game that it's based off is in great tier, and the anime, I'm just going to rank this right now, is Shadow Realm. And that sucks because when it was announced that Dragon's Dogma was getting an anime, I wanted it to be good. I was a fan of the game. I mean, yes, the game wasn't Skyrim, but for what it was worth, Dragon's Dogma was fun to play. And it just really broke me to see that the anime just couldn't deliver. And not to mention the fact that it's also another CGI anime as well, which, while it doesn't look terrible, it is a bit rough around the edges at times. Here's a funny thing that I realised, right? Dragon's Dogma is an anime which the lip movements of the characters when they speak were specifically animated for the English dub in mind.
So, wait, so you're saying this anime was mainly made to be dubbed, not subbed?
Yeah, because the funny thing is, when I was watching it, I noticed that in the dub, the characters' mouth movements will sync way too well for the dialogue. And when I watched it subbed as well, it's now a reverse problem. Like, sometimes when you watch anime subbed, it's fine, but when you watch it dubbed, sometimes, depending on the show, it doesn't match with the lip sync. it's now the other way around, because if you watch it subbed, the characters' performances don't match with the lip movements because it was, again, made for the English dub.
That is weird.
I mean, I guess maybe to appease to a Western audience, considering how it is based on medieval fantasy, but it hurt my brain when I noticed it. Okay, so our next anime, and hopefully it'll uplift our spirits more this time, Trigun.
Now, I've only seen the first episode of Trigun.
And how do you think of it so far?
It's interesting. I definitely enjoyed some humor that was in the first episode, and I'm interested to see where it would go.
Okay, so for the sake of this segment, I'll try my best to keep this spoiler-free as possible, actually, because of the fact that, well, you haven't seen it through the end yet. Okay, so Trigun follows our main protagonist, Vash the Stampede, who has a huge $60 billion bounty on his head, because wherever he goes, chaos and destruction follows. So, basically, later on down the line, two insurance agents, Millie and Meryl, are pretty much sent to make sure he is monitored to, of course, stop destroying things. But, of course, there's an interesting twist. You want to take it away, RT?
Is it that he's actually a goofball and he's not as dangerous as they thought he was?
Pretty much, yeah. After a few moments of the first episode where a small bar that he's in gets completely, destroyed by gunfire and a huge boomerang, it cuts off afterwards where he points his gun towards the bounty hunters, and later on we realise that he had no bullets, and he just, chickens his way out. So basically, It just adds a lot of confusion, okay, how does this guy, who is known as Vash the Stampede, have this huge bounty on his head?
I don't know, but it's honestly hilarious. I honestly was laughing out loud when that was happening. And I was also very confused, how on earth is this happening?
Yeah, that's the one thing I think that the show nails well for the most part. Its humor as well is a lot more lighthearted, and it is really funny when it needs to be. Though, down the line, it is not afraid to take a step back when something serious happens as well. So for the most part, tone-wise, I think it executes it pretty well. I think for the most part, the characters overall are really solid, especially with Vash. I think he's just very fun and interesting to follow. He's such a great protagonist.
Because of that, I bet you're putting it very high up.
So far, honestly, yes. In best of the best. And of course, I'm not going over too much details considering how, like you said, you haven't finished watching it yet, so I'm not sure if I want to discuss further spoilers. So, in a way, I'm going to literally say to the viewer, if you get the chance and you like classic 90s anime, go watch Trigun. It's actually really, really good. Okay, so next up is another 90s anime, which is based on one of the most beloved mangas of all time, Berserk. Specifically, the 1997 anime adaptation.
Now, I've not seen Berserk.
Have you at least heard of it to an extent?
Yeah, I've heard of it to an extent. I know it's extremely violent.
I mean, the manga and, of course, the animes do dive into some really dark subject matter, so I might as well say this right off the bat. Some of the stuff that happens might not be for everyone's cup of tea, so if you're kind of squeamish, keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's me gone.
Of course, Berserk 1997 is actually an adaptation of the early chapters of the manga. Also, I might as well say this right off the bat, I haven't read the mangas yet, but I am hoping to down the line, considering how, if you remember, RT, I did tell you this news a long while ago that the original author of the Berserk manga sadly passed away.
Oh yeah, you were really upset about that.
I mean, yeah, very much. So hopefully, when the time comes, I'm hopefully going to pick up a lot more of the mangas and all that, because I have heard it is very, very influential. And some of the art that I've seen online is just 10 out of 10 quality stuff, if I'm being honest. But we're getting a bit sidetracked. Back onto the anime, which basically adapts the early chapters of the manga where we follow Guts. And the funny thing is, the first episode kind of starts off in the present day scenario where he becomes known as the Black Swordsman, and later on, it kind of goes into a flashback scenario where we discover a lot about Guts in his early life, and how he later on encounters a mercenary group led by a man called Griffith, known as the Band of the Hawk.
We have one question.
Go on.
Which came out first? This or Sword Art Online? Because someone ripped off Black Swordsman off someone.
Oh, I know what you're referencing, so I might as well say this right on the bat, right now. Guts is the real Black Swordsman. Kirito from Sword Art Online stole that from him, and I'm very disappointed to remember that you told me about that. I'm oh yeah, he also has that title, why? And honestly, this is where I'm going to leave plot details to a minimum because of the fact that, well, I honestly do not want to spoil too much as well, because I do think Berserk 1997 is an anime that is best where you go in blind, and my god, some of the stuff that happens in it as well. It delivers on the violence, though I have heard from sources it's not as brutal as the manga, but when push comes to shove, it lays the smackdown.
With the manga, they can probably be a bit more...
detailed.
Yeah, a bit more lenient. When it comes to animation, they have to be careful what they put on screens, don't they?
Funny you should say that as well, because this was also made for television at the time, so because of that, it didn't, like, adapt everything faithfully, since there was some stuff that they had to leave out, if I'm stand corrected on that one.
Yeah, animes tend to leave little bits of the manga out.
Which, of course, makes sense considering how it was made for, again, television at the time. And overall, I did really, enjoy the cast of characters that we get throughout Berserk. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record as well, but I can't help myself. The music in this one is actually really good, and Guts' theme, you likely heard it somewhere online through certain memes, if you know what I'm talking about.
I'm more seeing a pattern here with this tier list being music themed.
I mean, for some reason, a lot of the soundtracks are just worth noting because they're actually really good. There is one thing, of course, that most people do remember this as well, which I'm not going to spoil too much, and I'm sure many people who watch this anime know where I'm going with this. The ending. My god, the ending.
I heard it got left on a cliffhanger, is that right?
I mean, if I have to describe it in non-spoilerish terms, yes, it pretty much got left on a cliffhanger, so if you wanted the story to continue, you had to, of course, basically read the mangas and all that. However, there were future anime adaptations of Berserk that I could note off as well. The first being a movie trilogy, which is basically a recap of the Golden Age arc, which the anime pretty much adapts as well, but in CGI, which I have heard those movies were okay. And then there's Berserk 2016/2017. I have seen it. No, I am not going to rank it because it is so horrendous that even if I placed it in Shadow Realm, I feel like putting it in any tier would be giving it way too much credit.
That terrible.
Yeah. The CGI is just... what the fuck? That's all I can say. Some of the animations in that just don't look right. But we're getting a bit sidetracked. We need to get back to Berserk 97. So, with all that being said, ranking it is a bit of an odd one, considering how, from my sources that I looked up for research, it leaves out some stuff, but it does have quite a huge following as well. So you could make some arguments for it being either best of the best or great, but I guess for the sake of my personal opinion, I could put it in great, considering how it does have some aspects that kind of drag it back a bit, considering how some of the animation, considering it was made in the 90s and for television, does look a bit rough around the edges. I mean, you could say the same for Trigun, but at least with Trigun, I think it made up a lot more with its other qualities personally, but that's just my personal opinion. Okay, next up is another anime from Kyoto Animations, Beyond the Boundary.
I've heard its name before, but I've not really seen any of its media before.
I mean, I'll tell you a bit of a story as well. You know how on your channel you did a collab for your Fictional Crushes video where you got me and Hawthorne involved?
Yeah.
Hawthorne basically introduced this anime to me a long while ago, so I watched it for a fair bit, and well, Beyond the Boundary is kind of a hard one to discuss, but I'll try my best.
Oh,
so,
it's going to be one of those.
Well, not really. It's not bad. I'll say that right off the bat, so at least you kind of have an idea of where I'm going to rank this later, but we'll see. So Beyond the Boundary is basically a fantasy anime which follows Akihito and Mirai in a world where there are spirit world warriors and these monsters called Yomu. Yeah, that's what the monsters are called, Yomu. It's basically kind of sounds similar to similar animes like Bleach, if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Where you have these warriors go after monsters.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought you were saying Nomu from My Hero.
Oh god. It's pronounced with a Y, like Yomu. It starts off where Akihito discovers that a girl is about to, well, jump off a building, shall we say, and tries to prevent her suicide, which of course we discover is our another main character, Mirai, who is a spirit world warrior who can form a sword out of her own blood.
Lovely, just lovely. So, this is self-harming with rewards, which is not a good message.
I mean, it doesn't go too much in that territory besides that introduction. Her power works where she manipulates her own blood later on to form a sword, like I said, which, to be fair, is actually kind of a cool power, if I'm going to be honest, just because it's unique in that. So basically with this anime, I might as well list off the pros and cons. The pros being, of course, since it is animated by Kyoto Animations, it looks gorgeous. It looks really good. The fights overall, where we see like Spirit World Warriors and Yomu combating, is actually really neat. The soundtrack is fairly nice. Not the most memorable for me personally, but it is very nice. And now for the cons, are you ready?
I guess.
Well, besides having Akihito and Mirai, who I believe have pretty good chemistry for the most part, I honestly don't remember much of all the other side characters, if I'm going to be honest. Not that they're bad, but I think it could have been written a bit more better into the story. But that's just my personal take. And of course, there are some aspects to the comedy that kind of fall flat on its face that I'm just like, yeah, I get what you're trying to do. Maybe start with these kinds of jokes, you know?
It could have been handled better.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly as well, one joke in particular that's a bit of a running gag is the fact that everyone makes fun of Akihito for being a quote-unquote perv for girls with glasses. Which is very creepy considering the fact that Mirai is also a girl that wears glasses.
Okay.
I mean, it's somehow a wonder that the chemistry still worked out in the end, but we'll try not to dive in too much deep into that.
For him, it's like, girls in fishnets? No, not my type. Girls in thigh highs? No. Girls with glasses? Yes.
And another thing that kind of disappointed me as well is that some things that the show introduced, like interesting concepts and new characters and that, kind of get like dropped under the bus afterwards. Like there's this plot, for example, where there's this character that has this spear-like weapon that when it absorbs Yomu, it gains more power, and she wants revenge against Mirai for something that happened in the past. And do you want to know how that ends?
How?
The fight ends and all that, and later on they make up, and the revenge plot just gets dropped. Honestly, you might as well have just killed her off at this point, and it wouldn't have changed much, honestly.
No, it sounds like this story does not know what to do with its characters.
So, honestly, it's kind of hard one to rank this, and honestly, Hawthorne, if you're watching this, all I can just say is, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's gonna kill you.
Don't worry, I'm not actually going to do that. I mean, if it was... The funny thing is, right, if this was actually done by some, like, other generic anime studio, this could be below average material, but because it's KyoAni and how they elevate it with, again, the animation, the fights and all that, it carries it enough for it to be indecent. It could have been done better. Maybe if I revisited it with better knowledge, I might appreciate it better, but for the most part, I thought it was okay. Okay, so next up is another 90s anime movie, Jinro the Wolf Brigade.
Again, I've not really heard of it.
So basically, Jinro the Wolf Brigade takes place in like an alternate reality of World War II, where after the bombs drop, shall we say, Japan later on experiences an economic boom, and the country is occupied by Germany. So you can imagine how much civil unrest this kind of causes, to the point where, because of all the protests and that, a capital police squad was formed known as Kerberos, or Kerberos, depending on how you pronounce it. It's a case of tomatoes and tomatoes, and I might as well stop this right now just to say the armor that the members wear, it's badass. It looks so awesome. Like, I wouldn't be surprised like if the armor itself was inspiration for the likes of Killzone and Wolfenstein, considering how they look kind of similar with the red visors and that. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked again because, you know, the armor looks awesome. So basically, it follows our main protagonist who one day, while exterminating some sect members, encounters a girl in a red hood that's about to detonate a bomb, but he stops her and asks why. But of course, his squad mates show up, guns pointed, and with no way out of it, she pulls the pin, and well, the rest is history. You can imagine that the walls were definitely painted red afterwards.
Yeah, that goes without saying.
So basically, afterwards, it kind of tackles the fact that our protagonist in question does struggle with trauma for what happened and potentially PTSD, and the fact that he kind of strokes up a relationship with a sister of the girl who killed herself. But at this point, I honestly do not want to spoil too much yet again, because I do think Jinro the Wolf Brigade is an anime that you should definitely experience for yourself. Honestly, considering how this was animated by the same studio behind Ghost in the Shell, Production IG, the animation for this one surprisingly holds up really well, and there is something unique that Jinro does compared to a lot of other animes, if you're curious.
And what do they do?
You know how a lot of characters nowadays are designed in a way where they're very expressive and cutesy and all that with their certain facial features and that?
Yeah.
Well, Jinro doesn't do that. it actually animates the characters in a way that they look realistic, almost like the kind of faces that you would see from everyday people in Japan. So this is an anime that definitely focuses on the realism for how the characters look and the world that they live in.
That's kind of interesting, really.
So basically, in a way, this could be an anime that could be good for people that want to get into anime, but they don't know where to start. And with the art style that it goes with, I think it will definitely win them over in terms of realism. So it helps with being immersed in this world, which I think does a fantastic job. However, I do have some personal gripes with it. Not big ones, but gripes nonetheless. The pacing for this movie can be kinda slow at times, considering how, in a way, it is character-driven, so it doesn't want to rush into a few things, so it expects you to be immersed with its world and the characters, so keep that in mind. And another thing that is kind of a hit or miss, depending on if you appreciate it or not, the film's allegories to Red Riding Hood might be a little bit on the nose. So basically, yeah, it kind of has that as its theme, where, you know, the girls that carry out the jobs for the sect are wearing, of course, Red Riding Hoods. And there is a scene later on where our main character is in this museum, where if you know where they have like these stuffed animals in its section, he's literally hanging out next to one of them that has wolves in the background. So yeah, it loves to really dive deep into its Red Riding Hood allegories.
That's just... okay.
Yeah, it's quite a complex movie, I can tell.
Yeah.
So ranking it is kind of going to be an odd one, but honestly, I'm going to rip up the band-aid and say, personally, I think it's best of the best material.
What, even with Red Riding Hood's story in your face?
At times, yeah, but I think its other qualities more than make up for it, and I do consider it to be like another anime film classic, so if you do get the chance, I'd say go for it. I think you will absolutely enjoy it, though maybe go in with the right expectations, because if you're going into this anime expecting dudes in like badass suits of armor just shooting at people for hours on end, you might set yourself up for disappointment.
Even though there are dudes in badass suits of armor.
Pretty much. Okay, so next up is another Godzilla anime, Godzilla Singular Point.
Now, I do really want to see the Godzilla animes, I just sadly have not got around to them.
Which is funny considering how last time we ranked the Netflix movie trilogy and how I thought that was kind of wasted potential. So you might be wondering, how does Singular Point fare off compared to that?
Imagine low compared to the others.
I mean, compared to the movie trilogy, I think Singular Point is more enjoyable and a bit more fun, but not by a huge margin since it does have its own fair share of issues. But of course, we'll get to those later. I mean, Singular Point is basically another retelling of Godzilla causing destruction for humanity in Japan, and they have to figure out how to prevent the catastrophe. Although the funny thing is, Godzilla doesn't show up until later on in the series, so early on, you basically get like different renditions of the monsters. So you see like a tiny Rodan just fly and cause a bit of havoc.
Wait, what? Tiny Rodan?
Yeah, you know, the pterodactyl monster. In this anime, for some reason, there's loads of them. And later on, when they spread the red mist so that they can live in the environment and all that. So it does like interesting new takes with the monsters that you pretty much know and love. And one thing that I do really like about this anime, to give it credit, is that when you're watching like the show and the ending credits, there are like tons of hidden Easter eggs and references to past Godzilla movies, so it pays homage to the franchise in general, which I think is pretty good for those who like to have a good Easter egg hunt.
Oh yeah, that definitely sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Of course, there is a major thing that kind of drags the show back for me a bit, and that's the fact that it really, really, really likes to dive into science. Yes, I know that Godzilla films and that in general do have the topics of science where they need to find out what kind of monster that they're dealing with, but Singular Point, I think, does it to a much, much bigger extent other than Godzilla, because they do discuss other scientific theories and all that, and it kind of does drag on a lot at times because the show itself does think that it's way too smart.
Yeah, I guess. I haven't seen it, so I can't really say if I would have gotten lost or not.
And overall, the one thing I will say as well is that the characters, for the most part, they're fine, but I think they do get a bit overstuffed with them, so I think they could have just trimmed those down a bit and focused on the main leads, which I think would have helped make the show a bit better, personally.
Maybe, but when it comes to a lot of Japanese media, especially Godzilla's, because I find it very true with Godzilla, they tend to focus on the overall story, not the individual parts. Shin Godzilla is a good example of that. Where in that movie, it's not Godzilla versus the leaders of Japan. It's literally Godzilla versus Japan itself. So, and I think a lot of people don't even know that or forget that's a big thing when it comes to a lot of Japanese media. So that's probably why you wish them to be more focused on the characters, since well, we're used to stories having focus on characters.
Yeah, I get what you mean and all that. I guess it just comes down to personal taste. So, compared to, again, with the movie trilogy that we discussed a long time ago, I think Singular Point is indecent. I enjoyed it a bit more, and I did have some moments of fun with it, but maybe if you want to enjoy it a bit better, maybe go in with the right expectations. And it is like another anime that does blend traditional and CGI animation as well, especially for the monsters. And funny as you said Shin Godzilla before, because this show literally takes a page out of that movie's book by having its version of Godzilla also evolve over time.
So you can almost, in a way, say this is like a direct sequel to Shin Godzilla.
No. I mean, kind of like with the Netflix movie trilogy before, and yes, Singular Point is on Netflix as well. It's its own thing, but Singular Point just looked over to Shin Godzilla and was like, you know what? I'm just going to copy your homework.
Oh, that's such a shame. I really want like an indirect sequel to Shin Godzilla, considering we're not going to get a Shin Godzilla 2.
I mean, I would love for Shin Godzilla 2 as well, but a man can dream.
Yeah.
A man can dream. Okay, so next up is another insane anime from Studio Gainax, Gurren Lagann.
Now, I know of Gurren Lagann. I know it's got some lovely fan service.
Yeah, it has its fair share of fan service and all that. But other than that, though, Gurren Lagann is quite an insane ride, if I'm going to be honest. So basically, this anime follows like our main characters of Simone and Kamina, who are basically living underground because humanity has been living under the earth for so long that they haven't even been up to the surface. However, one day when events transpire, when Simone discovers a hidden tiny robot called a gunman, they soon get out of this hole and discover the outside world. However, a bit of an odd thing is that when they're finally on the surface of the Earth, they discover that, well, beastmen pretty much are hunting for the remnants of humanity in these mechs that they pilot, which are also gunmen. I know it sounds similar to Gundam, but for some reason, it just kind of came into my head when I said that. And overall, Gurren Lagann, as I pretty much said, it's quite an experience, man. Like, it's a mecha anime where the action sequences are very, very fun and over the top with how insanely detailed and expressive the animation can get as well. And the characters that we follow, for the most part, considering how they are well developed, are very solid. I mean, I really like Simone's journey for him to become his own man. While Kamina is one of the best highlights of the anime. I'm just going to be saying it. He's just the inspirational bro who just knows what he's doing, and his iconic quote is, "Who the hell do you think I am?"
No, I gotta admit, I kind of like those characters as well. They just don't care and just do what they want.
And honestly, I know I'm skipping over a few details, but at this point, I'm just going to be honest. Gurren Lagann is best of the best. I really like the anime. I don't want to, again, dive into too much spoilers for those who may not have seen it, but all I can just say is, if you love mecha anime, and if you love, like, the works that Studio Gainax has done, especially with the works including Neon Genesis Evangelion, then I think you'll have a blast with this one, considering how it is a lot more fun, lighthearted, and overall, a very, very chaotic time, in a good way. Okay, next up is another video game anime, and this is one that I think we're both very familiar with, Danganronpa The Animation.
Yeah, because I'm the one who introduced Danganronpa to you.
Yeah, and I did actually get to play it on my Twitch and all that, and damn, the game is quite an experience. Of course, I might as well say this right off the bat in case people are curious about what my thoughts are on the game. The game would be in best of the best. I really loved it. So now, we need to talk about the anime that this is based off. Would you like to take it away?
Not a problem. I'm pretty sure it's pretty straightforward for people who've already played the game or seen the game. But for those people who don't even know about Danganronpa, here's a quick summary. A whole year group goes to a school known as Hope's Peak Academy, which focuses on people's talent. Eventually, our main lead, Makoto Aegi, makes his way into Hope's Peak Academy, only for him to fall unconscious when he starts to walk into the entrance and finds himself locked in to Hope's Peak Academy along with the rest of the student body of his year group. There, they get greeted by an evil teddy bear known as Monokuma, who tells them the only way to escape Hope's Peak Academy is to play a death game.
A death game where it goes something like this. One student has to kill someone to become the Blackened. And if they get away with it and they survive the class trials, they escape. But if they don't, they get executed and punished.
So, yeah, typical high school life.
Okay, so Danganronpa The Animation, it's kind of an interesting one to discuss about, considering how I did watch it reviewing that for a while, and I did check it out the rest for myself. And in comparison to the game, I think it does fine, but it does lead into a huge issue that I do have with it.
That being?
There's honestly not enough episodes to fit in the huge scale of the story that came from the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can sort of see what you're saying. Considering the game really dives into a lot, especially when it comes to its characters. Being 12 episodes...
You had one job.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, if I had to give an allegory, the animation for me feels like that one person that speedruns a story-driven game and gets surprised that they missed out a lot of crucial details. And I think it's kind of worse here, considering how with the very short episode count, it will feel like you're just speedrunning a lot of crucial details, where the anime is just well, we gotta hurry up with what we have, run fast.
If I had to say what Danganronpa The Animation really is, I'd say it's like an advertisement for the game.
I guess that kind of makes sense, since when watching it, you would feel like, okay, there are things that I like about it, but I think it would be better if I played the game. And in that case, that is true. Play the game. It's fantastic. Okay, so ranking this one is going to be a bit complex because I do have, honestly, 2 tiers for this anime in mind, if you're ready to hear out.
Well, you already said best of the best for the game.
Yeah, but for the anime, I think it might be... Okay, I'm gonna give you this analysis. Are you ready? Okay, for die-hard Danganronpa fans, if you play the games and you know everything about them and you love them, then watching the anime, I think you'll have a better experience for it to be decent. But if you're a newcomer and you want to go into this franchise a lot more quickly, then I think it might be below average due to the fact that you will notice the fact that a lot of stuff just gets cut out, skipped, and you're just scratching your head, if that makes sense.
Actually think a little differently, because my first experience with Danganronpa is the anime.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't know the games existed before the anime. What got me into Danganronpa is someone close to me's favorite anime apparently was Danganronpa. Apparently she really liked it. When I was going through the shops, I noticed it for sale. I was like, okay, let's go check out. Let's see what the hype is all about. I was not expecting what I saw. I gave her my I told her my opinions on after the first few episodes. She was like, yeah, get ready for the ending. You won't believe what happened. And yeah, I was honestly pretty shocked with what happens at the end. I guess I'm used to things being fast paced when it comes to some games and when it comes to some animes, because 12 episodes, you can't expect to pack everything in. And after the first episode or two, I could tell it was a detective game, so you're supposed to be thinking about the clues and evidence that came up. So I was prepared to not know everything, because they give you the clues, and in a way, you're supposed to figure it out yourself, just like in the game.
Yeah, I feel like that in the game it's probably done to a better extent because you're the one in control and you're the one that's putting the pieces together. The anime, it's a bit different because, like I said, ranking it I feel like is a bit complex, so it would depend on what mindset that you're in. So I'm gonna probably play Devil's Advocate and honestly probably put it in decent.
I feel like that might have been because of what I said.
Probably so, but again, I do have those two rankings, like I said, in my mind. It's indecent because of the fact that if you are a huge fan, I think you'll have a better time with this. But if you're not a fan and you're a newcomer, it's probably a below average experience.
Yeah, but again, I started off with the anime. I didn't think it was below average. I still really enjoyed it. But
that's
again,
but that comes from your perspective.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just trying to put myself in the minds of two different people, like how I enjoyed the game and how I would go into this if I was a newcomer, you know?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, if it still makes you happy, I think we'll put it in decent for now.
Yeah.
Although, for some people watching, you could make the argument that it might be below average because with the other video game anime on this list, Persona 4, at least that had way more episodes, but we'll see where it goes down the line. Okay, next up is another brutal, violent anime from Madhouse, Hellsing Ultimate.
I know of it. I know the name. I have not watched the series.
I will say this as a bit of an interesting tidbit. Hellsing Ultimate is actually the second time that the Hellsing series got adapted into an anime. So basically it got the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood treatment, where the second time around it's a lot more faithful.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, considering how the first time it was adapted, it did so at a time when the manga wasn't finished. Though I have heard the 2003 anime was pretty fine, if I remember the year correctly. If not, I'll probably put an image on screen just to compromise. So, Hellsing Ultimate is basically the story of Alucard, who works at the Hellsing organization, a company that pretty much hunts down demonic threats, such as vampires, ghouls, and all the fun stuff.
Well, that already sounds a bit interesting.
Of course, they deal with many threats throughout the entire series, up until the point where they deal with another huge threat, the return of the Nazis.
Of course, the Nazis. Why is it always the Nazis?
Pretty much. And of course, they are led by the Major, who really, really likes war. Actually, scratch that. He loves war. So yeah, the antagonist is very frightening and is just insane. Overall, I say Hellsing Ultimate is a really fun anime. It knows what it wants to be. It's brutal, violent, gory. So if you're a bit of a gore fan, like how I described a bit like with Dorohedoro and that, I think you'll have a fun time overall. But there is one issue that I do have that kind of drags the show a lot, if you want to hear me out on this one.
Okay.
And that's the fact that for example, when something serious happens, a few moments later, the animation changes to something that is more lighthearted and fun in its presentation, and honestly, I don't think it fits the tone at times.
Oh.
I mean, I get what they were trying to do. They want to like compromise the fact that it can get pretty dark, but I think they could have done that much better.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I never understand why some animes think that's a good idea.
I mean, if I have to bring up this, right, for example, like, you know, Death Note.
Yeah.
Imagine this, for example, when you're watching the anime. Imagine this scenario: something serious happens in the story, like something dark happens, but then a few moments later, you see Light and Ryuk back at home celebrating the event with a cheapified art style and everything being cutesy and all's fun and lighthearted. Wouldn't that break the immersion a lot?
Yes. I'm so glad that the Netflix live action did not choose to go that route.
Although it did give us some quality laughable moments, though, you gotta admit.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, with Hellsing Ultimate, I really wanted to put it in best of the best, but I feel like I'm comfortable putting it in great. Just because those moments, like I said, do kind of break the tone, and I think they could have done the lighthearted moments a lot better.
Yeah.
Although, if I was talking about Hellsing Ultimate Abridged from Team 4-Star, yeah, that is best of the best material, in case some of you are watching and they know about that.
Yeah, abridged series tend to be a lot more fun.
Yeah. Probably should also introduce you to that down the line as well.
Oh,
now that I brought it up.
Oh, be careful. I might introduce you Sword Art Online Abridged.
I mean, to be fair, we can do an exchange. We can do that.
Just to make each other suffer.
For different reasons. Okay, next up is a Studio Ghibli film, and I'm sure you might be aware of the studio's legacy, because this one is probably one of my personal favourite films of all time, Spirited Away.
Yeah, anyone who's watched anime or is an otaku knows of Studio Ghibli, or has at least thought about seeing a film or two that they've done.
I would say as well that, now that you said it, my introduction would be Spirited Away because it's pretty much Hayao Miyazaki's magnum opus. Although you could make the argument that Princess Mononoke and such could be, but when it comes to my personal tastes, Spirited Away is my personal favourite film in the studio of all time. So basically, you know how the story for this one goes?
No, I've never heard of this Studio Ghibli movie.
Okay, so Spirited Away follows Chihiro, a young girl who is moving away to a new home with her parents, until one day they encountered a shortcut which leads them to a very, very strange and abandoned place, which, when her parents discover food lying around, they can't help themselves and eat it, and when night comes, everything starts to come alive with spirits and the such showing up, and when Chihiro comes back to get her parents out, they've turned into pigs.
Already this sounds like a movie where the adults are stupid but the children are smart.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, she was whiny a bit early on, but in a way, you kind of like, yeah, she's whiny, but she makes sense. Get out of there.
Remember, kids, being a whiny bitch is okay as long as it's only during a supernatural event. Said no one ever.
However, later on in the movie, she basically asks for like a job to work at this bathhouse for spirits. So not only does she like have to like make her way through that life, but also try to escape and to rescue her parents. And if I had to describe this movie in one word, it would be beautiful, because considering it's Studio Ghibli, the animation still holds up incredibly well. It's an absolute spectacle to look at, and it's very calming and pleasing to the eye, so I might as well just say that out of the bat. It's amazing.
Yeah, kind of given. Studio Ghibli is always known for its beautiful art styles.
Yeah. And of course, Chihiro as a character, she develops over time, and her journey, I think, is executed really solid. As well as a lot of the characters we get introduced, I think they were pretty fun and good. Especially with one spirit in particular who is pretty iconic for this movie, who I believe is called No Face.
No Face?
Yeah, it's basically just a spirit called No Face. I mean, he's kind of odd, creepy, but he does contribute to helping out Chihiro at some crucial points in the movie, and he does pretty much give up some iconic moments for the movie, like when Chihiro is with him on the train, which is just wonderful.
Oh, I could just picture it. He's been born and his parents just look at him and go, "Oh, that face, I don't want to look at it. Let's name him No Face, so that way people know not to look at his face."
I mean, if you like to have a bit of an intervention, I could actually just show you what he looks like.
Alright.
Okay, so forgive us, we'll be right back after these commercials, everyone.
Why is it called No Face? It better be called No Legs. Or wait, is he hiding his face with that mask? What the hell?
Yeah, he does appear kind of creepy, but overall I do think No Face is kind of iconic for the movie, for me at least.
I don't care what you call him, I'm just going to call him No Legs from now on. Because he has no legs!
Well,
What's more understandable than No Face?
Oh god, I'm just laughing at your reaction. You
The
know...
best reactions! Watch me on Twitch and find out.
Yeah. Okay, with that out of the way then, I think it's fair to say that I'm just going to jump the gun on this one and put it in best of the best. Because it's my favourite movie from Studio Ghibli. I love it. You should definitely check it out down the line. I mean, I can't say anything else that hasn't already been said about this movie. Everyone has pretty much done their job better than me. So, if you get the chance, please watch Spirited Away. You will thank me later. Okay, so for our last anime is another Persona anime. Persona 5, the animation. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Persona 5, the animation. Persona 5, the animation. Persona 5, the animation. Persona 5, the animation. Persona 5, the animation.
I'm literally surprised you actually did that. So you could just say, like, never seen it and all that.
I don't have to, you just said it for me.
I mean, to be fair, I kind of knew you were probably going to say that, but that's besides the point now, so let's end things off with quite an interesting take, shall we say?
Alright.
So, kind of similar to 4, it starts off with our main character being transferred to a huge city, but for a different reason, because Ren is on probation for a crime he didn't commit. So yeah, it's a bit more darker than you would expect.
I'm more interested on how on earth he got framed.
Well, I can probably say it since it's not much of a major spoiler. He basically tried to save a woman from assault from a politician who basically framed him.
Oh, so like real life.
Pretty much. So basically, later on, he gains a mysterious app on his phone, which later on allows him to enter into these very strange worlds in the metaverse, and later on he gains the power of, you guessed it, a persona, as well as the rest of his friends later on, who later form the Phantom Thieves.
Also, that's where the Phantom Thieves in the title comes from.
Yeah, that's where it's from, Persona 5. Just to clarify for those watching, the animation actually adapts the base game of Persona 5, so it doesn't count in the new characters and such for the Royal version, so do keep that noted. However, Persona 5, the animation compared to the game is interesting, but not in the way that you're expecting. Are you ready?
Yep.
Because, at least with Persona 4, the animation, in which I think for the most part it adapts the source material fairly solid, Persona 5 is honestly a much bigger disappointment.
So, I have to guess just from that line alone that the best in animation-wise or quality-wise is in the reverse order of the numbering.
If you could pretty much put it that way, because I might as well just say what everyone has already said about this anime. The animation errors. What the fuck?
Oh, how bad are we talking? Are we talking like Seven Deadly Sins bad, where we ended up with white blood, or are we just like worse?
I guess it's subjective because I haven't seen Seven Deadly Sins to comment on it, but I'll give you like these examples the best I can just to give you a good idea. This is also yet another anime which uses CGI, but it's a lot more horrendous than some of the other ones I mentioned because you just notice it just stand out like a sore thumb, and you're just like, what is this monstrosity? The second, of course, is that sometimes characters' faces just don't look right. Like sometimes they're kind of like drawn badly, like they were drawn with doodles and all that, and I'm just like, how did this get past quality assurance? You know what? Instead of telling you these issues, how about I show you? Are you ready?
Yeah. Okay. What the?
Yeah, that is bad. Very bad.
Okay, the first one I could probably cope with as well if I was like just him having like an I don't care face, but that is just what?
It's just like I said, it's just like, how did any of this get through quality assurance? And let me show you another one where sometimes the faces just don't look right.
What the absolute what?
Yeah, I don't know how any of this got past, but they just stand out like a sore thumb. They really do. I mean, at its best, it looks fine. It does what it has to. I mean, it was animated by A1 Pictures, the same company behind Sword Art Online, but again, unlike that one that has arguably better animation at least, this one, when you notice the errors, you're just like, why? Just why? I take it you're shocked after seeing those errors that I showed you.
Just a bit, yeah.
Although, I mean, I guess I wouldn't say it's like the worst anime ever, but it sometimes breaks your immersion a lot. And at its best, when it's adapting the story and all that, I think it does it fine, but I don't think it does it to a better extent that Persona 4 the animation does. So, you know what? We're gonna finally end the ranking because this one's gonna be a bit of an interesting one. Because I'm honestly tied between it being either below average since we haven't put anything in there for a while, or worst case scenario, Shadow Realm, because I think everyone's just like beating a dead horse at this point.
How to break the tie though?
You know, you think we should break the tie and put it in below average since we haven't put anything in it in a long while?
I guess probably. I can't really commentate because I've not seen any of the Personas. It's just a question, do you really think it's on the same rank as the fourth one?
It's definitely not on the same rank as the fourth one. I mean, yeah, 4 does have its problems, but I don't think it has it to the grand extent that 5 does, so I think I'm comfortable with putting it in below average because I don't think I hated it as much as like Dragon's Dogma, where it's just like depression incarnate. Because with Persona 5, I think you can have fun with the anime, though pretty much like with some of the other ones I mentioned, you're probably better off playing the game instead. So that concludes our tier list for my Part 2 follow-up.
Yeah, it's an honestly interesting list.
Very, very interesting. So, thank you all so much for watching.
And we hope to see you all next time.
This is IronZaku signing out. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.